in this video we're going to be doing a teardown, or at least what guys on YouTube call a teardown, although in my head, you know, what we're engaged in really here isn't a teardown. That's the kind of word that you would reserve for maybe when you and a beautiful lady that you like very much, and more importantly likes you very much, you guys have way too much champagne and you have a teardown. So we're not doing that, at least Wade's not on video. And yeah, what we're doing is a careful disassembly of a Seiko watch. And whilst I'm talking about Seiko watches, let's come in here and look at this beautiful watch by Seiko. It's a Seikomatic and it was made in 1964, and here's the top secret for you. I was also made in 1964. In fact, this watch was built in October 1964 and I was built in October 1964. And check out the beautiful blue lettering on the Saturday there. This watch has 35 jewels in it, and in a future video I'm going to be showing you where each of those 35 jewels are placed in the watch to make it a very fine movement. Now, in today's video, we're not going to be taking apart this watch. We're going to be taking apart a different Seiko. It's the Seiko Seahorse. It was built a year later than the watch that I've just shown you. It has 17 jewels and the movement is the 6601 movement. So we are going to take this watch apart slowly and carefully so you guys get to see exactly how that's done. And in a future video we'll put it all back together. So this is a calm, careful, slow disassembly of a beautiful Seiko watch. Guys, if you make love in the way in which I take this watch apart, you guys are doing it wrong. Okay, let's get on with it. Keeps everything under control. And there we go. Okay, so the acrylic is so scratched that it's almost got a frosted effect over the dial there. It's like some beautiful woman in the shower. Because this is such an elegant 1960s watch. I tried to get an advertisement of the production year to show you guys, but I wasn't able to do that. So if anyone can find an advertisement, a magazine advertisement for this watch, then put it in the comments please, and send us a link, because Seiko did great adverts for some of these watches back in the 60s. Anyway, there you can see the dial is in great condition, the hands are in great condition, the movement is working, as you can see there, and we got 17 jewels. The watch is called waterproof, but it's not a screw down crown, and it's got that whole really elegant kind of almost Grand Seiko feel to it. So in a moment we're going to put it on the Timegrapher to see what that's telling us before we start the service of this watch, and then we're going to crack on and do a complete service. But there is just one thing that I want to show you before we do that, and let's see if I can do that by just turning the watch over here. Okay, yeah, this is it. Look at this. Oh my god. Okay, not quite sure if we sent that to the forensic laboratory lab what that would be, but you know, there's a lot of sweat and dead skin there. It's pretty disgusting. I'll show you a high-res photograph of that in a minute. I get a lot of this on watches that are serviced. Clearly people wash their clothes and everything, but oh my god, look at that. That is minging. So the very first thing we're going to do is, you know, just take the bracelet off, which is a very cheap aftermarket bracelet anyway. And whilst I'm on this high resolution here, let's look at the case back. We can see the movement is 6601. That's the caliber, and the other numbers that you can see at the top of the frame there, the 9990, that denotes the case. The DiaShock, that is the shock protection on either end of the balance staff, and I'll talk about that when we do the service. Let me just point that out on the case here. There, that's the DiaShock bit, and apparently it has an unbreakable spring. So it may be the original spring that's in there. Hopefully it has enough tension to give us a high amplitude. We're going to look at that in a minute now anyway. So one of the first things we're going to do is put some power on this watch. We're going to have to give it a little bit of time in the watch winder to do that, and then we're going to start the service. But the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this disgusting stuff here. So let's crack on. And there is the watch then on the Timegrapher, sat comfortably ticking away, looking very elegant. Let's have a look at what the Timegrapher is telling us. And there it is. You can see that the watch is gaining about a minute a day, that the amplitude is set just above 200 degrees. It's a little bit low, but not massively low. And the beat error is quite big. We will be looking for a beat error of less than 0.5 of a millisecond, and ideally about 0.3, 0.2 of a millisecond. So we need to set the watch in beat. I have set the lift angle for this caliber, the 6610, at 53 because I couldn't find out actually. I did a little bit of research on it and couldn't find out from the internet exactly what the lift angle should be. So if you do know that, then please put that in the comments. Appreciate that. I know guys watching this video will appreciate that. So that'd be grand. And as you can see, the Timegrapher has picked up the fact that it's beating at 18,000 beats per hour, which is typical of a watch of this quality in the mid-1960s. In fact, most watches in the mid-1960s were beating around about that mark. In summary, what this is telling us is that this very elegant 1960s watch is due a service, and that's precisely what we're going to do now. So we're going to take the movement out, and so that we can take the case away and clean it properly, and then we're going to start getting into the movement and doing a full service. So let's crack on. Okay, so we're going to take the back off now with the gunk still on the watch. I'm not completely confident of the waterproofing capabilities of this watch, so I don't really want to go at it with soap and water and a toothbrush and stuff like that, with the movement still in it. So we're going to take the movement out first, and then give the case a proper clean, first with a toothbrush and some water, and then later it'll go in the ultrasonic cleaner. So to take the case back off, you're going to need a piece of polythene. You can see I've used this one before, and yeah, a polythene bag like this, just to protect the back of the case. And then you're going to take your tool. There's a variety of different tools that you can use, but this is a very standard one, and because the case back is also a very standard one, I've got the standard attachments that you can see there, with the kind of little metal nipple things that are just going to locate in the recess. So we're going to just do that now. Sometimes it's a little bit stiff, this process. Sometimes it just pops off. So I can actually see this a little better than you can from the top, but you have to push down quite hard to make sure it's located, and then just turn anti-clockwise, and this one is coming off okay. There we go. Okay, so that's, it is still a little bit stiff. Because we're not going to put much force on it now, because we have released it, I can now put it on without the plastic, just to give me that little bit of extra turn. When you do this, don't ever force this, because you will scratch the back of the case. But that just gives us an extra little bit of turn, just to get it over that. The gunk on the case isn't helping this process at all. And if I don't get this case off in a minute, this video will be 8 hours long. Okay, so we've now got it, and here's the moment of truth as we take the case back off and show the movement. Voila! And that is pretty, very pretty. Okay, see the balance going there. Bring the movement up to the camera. Stand up so I can see it myself. And yeah, you can see there we've got Seiko, Sportmatic, the balance, nice colour in the capstone there, nice deep, almost purple ruby. You can see all the gunk still around the edge. So our next job now is to take out the stem and release this movement and the dial and everything, and then get that on the movement stand so that we can get the case away for cleaning. So we're going to do that now. So there's a proper aerial shot now of the movement in the gunkiest case in Christendom. So just pointing out a few things here. This is the rotor arm here, and there is the balance turning away nicely. The next bit that we're going to need to concentrate on is this little button here, little dimpled button here. To release the stem, you have to press down on that. I normally use a closed-up pair of tweezers for that. And then as you press down, just pull gently out on the stem will come right out. And then we just need to check if there's anything else retaining the movement. I don't think there is. I'm just looking at this screw here. This may be a movement retention screw. Just check that we've got, and there might be another one here actually, yeah. Probably remove those and then pop the movement out. So let's do that now, actually try and get that on film. So just coming in now with a, if I use some curved tweezers, I might be able to show you this a bit better. Okay, so coming in here and just pressing down on this, just to stop the watch pivoting as I do that. I'm just going to press down with my other hand there, my other finger rather. So just pressing down on that, and as I do, just coming in with the loop to see what I'm doing. I'm in completely the wrong place, hang on. I'm trying to do it from a distance. I'm pushing on a screw, that's funny. So actually, if you push on this screw here, right, it's going to do nothing. This is where you want to be, right here. Okay, this is the difficulty of filming it and doing it. So what we're going to do now is just push down on that. That should push in nicely. Get your nail in, and out comes the stem straight away. Okay, very nice. So the stem's out now. There we go. There's the stem. What we're going to do now is release these two screws and then just flip the movement over, and she should pop out. So let's do that. Choosing the right size screwdriver as always, and not got enough room here, so I'm going to have to lift up the camera a little bit to achieve this. Okay, so the two movement retention screws that we took out gave us a clue actually of the way in which this movement pops out, and it actually works very similar to a pocket watch, or most pocket watches, in the sense that these screws actually pull the whole movement and the dial back up into the case, and then the bezel and glass is fitted on to the front of that. So to get the dial and the movement out, we're going to have to get it out of the front of the case. So when you see that, and here is the little hole, the threaded hole that we took one of the retention screws out, what that does as you screw it in is it pulls up on the movement, and that's a good indication that the movement is actually going to come out of the front of the watch. So the next thing to do then is to discover the location where we can insert a tool to prise off the bezel and the glass. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so there's actually nowhere obvious between the bezel and the case to release the bezel and glass here, and that might be because it's caked in so much gunk that it's actually difficult to see. So I've just placed this particular part of the tool here in the very slight gap between the bezel and the case, and this tool is very useful for this purpose. It just gives it a little bit of force between the case and the bezel to pop it off, and you can also do it in a way which is under a degree of control. So we're just gonna do that now. Try and catch this on film. Coming in here with my loupe so I can see what's going on. Just changing the camera angle here a little bit so I can see what's happening. Okay, that's good, and just increasing the pressure here a little bit. And just checking with the loupe to see that I'm not doing any damage, and increasing the pressure, making sure I'm between the bezel and the case, and then just increasing the pressure here, giving it a little lift. There we go, and in a minute she'll pop off. There we go, just like that. Okay. Now I can just come in with this tool, having got the main part of it done, just to ease the... It's always good to use a tool like this because it keeps everything under control, and there we go, just like that. So we can now take the bezel and glass away. Just inspect that, make sure that's all good. Yeah, it's looking good. Good. And as you can see now, we actually get a look at just how lovely that dial is. It's absolutely pristine, which is what we're after here. That's very, very nice. So now we'll be able to take out the movement. It'll come straight, should come straight out the front. So what we're going to do now is take it out carefully and, keeping it in the shot, place the movement there. I'm going to place some plastic over it like that, and then bring in a cushion, turn it upside down, and et voila! One movement successfully taken from the dirtiest case that ever was. So I'm just going to flip this over now because actually the hands are resting against that, and there we go. Voila. Spin it round, and there is one underneath that frosted dial. There is the beautiful woman that I referred to earlier, and there is a little bit of gunk there, so just remove that. Very, very nice. Right, we're just going to release the hands in a minute, and then we can start getting into the movement. So before we take the dial off, what I like to do is take the balance out. The balance is the most delicate part of the mechanism, so it's good to get it safely away as soon as possible. And it also, of course, stops the hands from moving, what we can then do is reinsert the stem and turn the hands to a favourable position for removing them. So the first thing we're going to do then is just come in here and take out the balance. I've only put the movement lightly in the holder, so I'm holding it with one finger as well as in the holder. Just release the main screw there that's retaining the balance cock. Get it all the way out, that's it. And then the secret, of course, is to make sure that the screws all go with their components, so you don't mix them up when you're putting them back. Some good screw discipline. And then we can just lift up the balance here very gently. Don't want to. There we go, and there it comes away. And what I do with the balance, there's a number of things you can do, but I always put it on a nice piece of foam like this and just lay it like that, and in a moment off camera I'll just flip it on its back and locate the pivot in the jewel, and then cover it with something robust just to protect it. So that is what we shall do now. Okay, as I said, it helps to have the hands pointing in roughly the same direction for this next part. You'll remember that I use this bag for taking the back of the watch off, and that's actually a double layer because it is a bag of polythene. It's a little bit thick to lay over the hands when you take the hands off because the gaps are a little bit narrow, so I take a pair of scissors, voila, and just cut myself out a single layer to this next bit, and it just makes it, you got a little bit more contact with the levers against the dial. But the key thing is it protects this lovely dial because the levers are made out of steel because they have to be strong and thin, and something that is strong and thin that you're pushing against the dial can easily mark the dial. So let's try and focus in that on there like that now, and we lay our single piece of plastic over the dial, so it's much thinner, or at least twice as thin as the double piece, and it's a little less slippage on it because you've only got the one layer. And then just come in with the levers. The levers look like this. Okay, these are reasonably quality pair of hand levers. We don't have to worry about the balance because that's already been taken off the back. So I'm just going to come in here with my loop now as well. Place them gently underneath all of the hands. And they're called levers for a reason, because you need to lever. So come under and then make sure you're underneath and just lever up like that, and all three hands will come away. And that is that done there. Just lift away the plastic. Be careful because sometimes the second hand comes with the plastic. And then we're just going to take each of these hands very carefully. In fact, good point there. You saw me using steel tweezers for that. That's not actually good practice. It's better to come in with some brass ones which are softer. Okay, if the hands are steel and you're using brass tweezers, you're not going to scratch them as easily. And then take each hand away very carefully. We don't want to scratch these hands because the hands are very, very lovely and grand Seiko-esque, part of the character of this watch, which we want to preserve. Okay, also watching your tweezers against the dial as we do it. Okay, trying to get this last one's got less to grip. Okay, it's better. We can get hold of it now. There we go. And that's the hands away. So the next thing to do now is just to remove the dial. So the dial will have a couple of dial feet, at least two, maybe three. but normally in these Seikos it's just 2, as I remember rightly. And we can actually see them here. They're a little bit longer than normal because of the width of the dial in this instance. Here is one here, which is actually quite loose already, and here is the other one here. So what we were going to do now is loosen these off so that the dial falls away. So I'm just going to do that now with the movement actually on the cushion, if I can get that to focus. I'm just going to spin the cushion around and loosen them. You normally need quite a small screwdriver for this, so come in here with a yellow, and just this one is already almost out. So I think if we just spin this round here and do the other one, the dial is probably going to come away then quite quickly. Just carefully coming in here. Now once you've done these, you can screw them back in so that they're not another screw that you have to worry about. But actually in this case they're quite a different shape to the other screws. So I might just take them away completely, and there you go. There is the dial with the 2 dial feet. You can see the way that the hour markers have been put on here. You know, it's been a properly built watch, this, and it's in nice condition. There is no calendar works. If I just flip the movement over there, and one thing to make sure of that you retain is the dial washer here, because that has actually quite often I take off dials and there is no dial washer, and the dial washer plays an important role in pushing the hour wheel into location underneath the dial. So what I'm going to do now is actually remove these dial screws, because I don't like them staying in the movement, in this instance at least, for cleaning, and then we can take off anything that's going to fall off here and secure it, and then get the movement in the movement stand holder, and we can start to disassemble it. And because there's no calendar works on this movement compared with a lot of movements, it's actually reasonably straightforward. Okay, so we've got the movement on the movement holder now, and we're going to start the disassembly of that with the automatic works, and beginning with the oscillating weight here. So we're just going to move straight into that now, making sure that we're maintaining some focus here. That's good. Okay. That comes off pretty straightforward. Okay, so now let's focus in a little bit on the next bit. So just some points to note here. We've got this top plate here that we're about to remove. You can also see the ball bearings in the rotor arm, which is you know, really nice quality. That shows the quality of this particular automatic movement. So we're going to lift out these screws here now and just take off this top plate here. Okay, so I've popped those screws out, so we're just going to now lift this top plate up, the automatic works up, just gently. Let's find, there we go. Okay, so just flip that over now so you can see what is underneath. Et voila! And that mechanism is called the magic lever, and we'll disassemble that in a moment and go through the components therein. So I've substituted the rotor arm for a piece of pegwood to act as a shaft, and I've attached that via some Rodico just so I can turn it around and show you just how elegant this magic lever mechanism is, because if I turn it one way, you'll notice and it moves the wheel round in a clockwise fashion, winding the spring up. But if I reverse the direction of my turn, you'll notice that it still winds the wheel in a clockwise direction, which is of course what you want. So, you know, that is actually a really, really lovely piece of engineering. You know, this one has been going since 1965, so we don't know how many miles it's seen in that time, but nevertheless, you can see there that the tiny little teeth that are on the main driving wheel there, you know, still look to be in good shape and not too worn. Also, you'll notice that the center of the magic lever, let's just point that out here, is nicely jeweled, which is another sign of quality. It's also full of gunk. There's garbage everywhere, but that's why we're giving it a service. So we're just going to disassemble this part of the mechanism now. So now that we've got the automatic works off, we can look deeper into the movement, and this is the pivot for the center wheel. It isn't jeweled, and as you can see, it's also caked in some gunk of some sort. That must be very ancient, dried out oil of some sort, I guess, because I can't see what else. Don't think it's rust, because, you know, there doesn't seem to be any other water ingress, and it's centered around that pivot there. So I think that's dried out old oil. So, you know, the watch isn't going to run great with that thing going on. So, you know, this is why we conduct the service. So just thought I'd point that out. Let's have a little look around the rest of the movement here. These jewels all look in good nick, so that's good. Okay, so there's the ratchet wheel there. The jewel there looks okay. Okay, so let's now get down into the train. First thing we're going to do is take the power off the spring, for which we will have to just manipulate the ratchet wheel carefully, and whilst releasing the click that you can see there. Let me just point that out with a piece of pegwood. Hang on, if I can just see that, work my way in here. There it is there. Okay, that's the click with the little click spring behind it. That stops the ratchet coming back. So we're just going to release that, or push that forward rather, so that the ratchet wheel can turn back and release the tension on the spring. And we'll just do it under control with a screwdriver in this screw here. So we're going to do that now. So there is no manual wind on this mechanism, so you don't see a crown wheel attached to the stem, because the only thing that's winding up the mainspring is the rotor arm via the magic lever, which I've already explained. So what we're going to do here, just to show you the way in which the ratchet works, if I just turn that, you can just see the ratchet there and the click. So by doing this, I'm doing what the rotor arm would normally do and putting power on the spring. Now clearly we don't want that, we want to let the spring down. So the way in which we do that is just to move it forward a little bit and then take the clip out of the way slightly. I'm doing this from a distance, it's a little bit tricky, and then under control let the spring down like that. Okay, because I've got the clip out of the way, the click out of the way, I should say. And then you can just let go of it and it will lock in. Okay, so just take that off and do that again. Pop the screwdriver in, turn it slightly towards you. You can see the click move there. Just grab the click out of the way and let the spring down under control like that. Okay, there we are. I'm going to do the rest of that now with my loop, and then we'll get into moving the top plate off, or the main plate off I should say, and we'll take the ratchet wheel off first. Okay, so that's all the power taking out of the spring. What we're going to do now is take off the ratchet wheel and remove the top plate. When we've done that, what I normally do is photograph the arrangement of the power train, unless unless it's a movement that I do a lot, in which case I don't need to. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so we're now down to the power train, which is good. And this bit, this next bit is actually quite straightforward. What we're going to do is individually take out the wheels. So this is the center wheel, the second wheel. Just lift him out gently. Okay, in this movement, is that? So I lost the focus there as I took out those wheels, so I've just got the movement back in focus. And in fact, the two wheels that I removed are actually the third and fourth wheel, because if you look here, and hopefully the camera isn't unfocusing at this point, this is the top pivot and pinion of the escape wheel. So to get into the second wheel and the escape wheel and the barrel, we have to lift off this plate here. So that's the next thing that we're going to do. I'm just going to do that because my camera's playing up and it keeps on not focusing. So I'm just going to remove that screw, lift off this plate, and then I'll rejoin the video there. So just coming in and taking out the escape wheel nice and carefully. Quick check of the pivots. That looks good. Oops. Throw it around the bench, not good for it. Just grab that. Pop that with the rest of the wheels there, coming in and okay, needed a little bit of persuasion, but pop out the mainspring, and then, as I say, the next thing to do is to flip the movement over and take off the cannon pinion, because the cannon pinion is always attached to the center wheel here, otherwise you wouldn't get any motion on the hand. So I'm just going to flip over the movement now. So this is the cannon pinion right in the center here, called the cannon pinion because it looks like a cannon, and you can get a special tool to remove it, but I usually just use a pair of curved tweezers like this. Now the key thing though is to make sure that you pull up on it firmly, but don't sort of lever it or bend it across, because you don't want to bend the the stem on the center wheel. So we just give that a pull up like that, and out she comes, nice and swift, and the center wheel, as you see, has dropped straight out the bottom once you've separated them. Okay, so that's good. That is that part of it done. What we can do now is just flip the movement over and take off the pallet fork cock, and the pallets will come out as well. So just going to flip the movement over. Okay, just do that. Okay, so this is the component we're interested in now. It's secured by this one screw here. You can see the jewel there, and located by this post here. So just remove that screw and it'll pop straight out. We might lose a bit of focus here, but I'll see if I can do it and not use focus. Okay. Okay. Doing it from a distance, it's always a little bit tricky. And just come and retrieve that screw carefully. Now, I always say this, but please remember to put the screws and the components that they secure together in your little organized tray of bits, or you will have a lot of fun and games when you come to put it all back together. I'm just going to flip that round, gently place the screwdriver under there to lift it up, come in with the brass tweezers because they're softer than the steel that I'm taking out, and pop that with its screw, okay, and which then leaves the pallets that you can see here. Okay, there's the pallet fork there, and we just, let's say there is the pallet fork. There, and just pop him out as well. Okay, that's good. What you want to do when you've got all of these out is check all the pivots. I'll just have a quick check on this side of the movement, make sure there's nothing that we've forgotten. I'm pretty sure there isn't. And have a look with the loop. We've got some gunk here. There used to be some dried up grease, which isn't great. Clean all that off. So we've got the keyless works to take off, and the motion works, and that is it for this movement. So just flip that over. Okay. And we're going to come in here now, and the next thing to remove is this plate here, which will give us access to the minute wheel, and then this wheel here, and which I think is called the intermediate wheel, but I can't remember. And you know, some very simple keyless works here. It looks nice though. So yeah, let's do this next bit. Again, hoping not to lose the focus here. Screwdrivers may be a bit big. Oh, we're good. Okay. So on. this is a whole lot simpler than when you've got calendar works to worry about. When you're undoing the screw, try and always do it so that, if I can show you, it goes, you see that little tack like that? That's it going over the end of the thread. And then you know that you can actually lift it out. Otherwise, you waste time trying to lift out screws that are still actually attached to the thread. Okay, so, just dropped him. These screws are quite small, so you do need to be careful, because if you throw one on the floor, they will obey the golden rule of watchmaking, which is they will just disappear regardless of how clean and bright your floor is. Those little screws just disappear. So that's that plate removed now, which gives us access to the keyless works. I would, even if I wasn't videoing the disassembly, I would actually photograph the keyless works at this time if it was a movement that I was unfamiliar with. These keyless works are refreshingly simple, and so we're just going to lift off these wheels now and then take out the keyless works, and we're pretty much good to go. This is a nice movement, this. I like this movement. So this is the minute wheel. Just take that off. And the intermediate wheel. So what we can do now is just take off this main screw here, which is pretty much the only one that is securing down the keyless work, so that's good news. It's quite wide, so we need a big-ish. Try this one. I wonder if this one will be good. Let's go in here. There it goes. Okay, that little, there you go, she's ready to come out. He said, there we go. Okay, so this is, I was about to say it's sprung and under tension, and it is a little bit. Okay, and there we have this side of the plate also done. So that is the a full disassembly of this movement. What I'm going to do just before we wrap up this video is just go through all the components that we've taken apart, and then in part 2 of the video what we're going to do is put the once the watch has been through the cleaner, we will do a full video of its reassembly and regulation. So let's crack on. And because it's pushing the clutch back here, so let's just going to be careful with this, just in case it's under tension. Going to put a little bit of pegwood on it while we, oh. Thankfully it wasn't under a lot of tension, otherwise it would have pinged across the room and we'd have spent the next half an hour trying to find it. But there we go, that's good. Pop that with the other rest of the keyless works. This little chap will just lift off. Okay, there we go. Alright, that's good. And likewise, there. Okay, so I don't know, I think I might just have missed that on the shot, but we just took out the component there. And the stem will just pull straight out now. Voila. And we have got the clutch wheel in there. Okay. we go. And there then is the whole movement taken apart with all the pieces that you can see there. So quickly, let's run through these just to recap. So here we have the main plate with some nice jewels that you can see there. We have the rotor arm. Just trying to get this to focus. So there we are, the whole movement disassembled. So let's quickly go through it to remind ourselves of what's what. We've got the main plate there, we can see, with the nice jewels in it. We have got in the center of the frame there the rotor arm. Then we've got the ratchet wheel and the click spring. And we have got there the hour wheel, the intermediate wheel, and the minute wheel. Then we run at the top of the train there. You can see the case and the movement retention screws below the case. And then just going down, we've got the second wheel, third wheel, fourth wheel, escape wheel, just in the center of the frame there now. The dial to the left of it on top of the crystal and the bezel, and then we've got the dial surround with the keyless works inside it, and the stem and the winding pinion, sometimes known as the castle pinion, because it looks a bit like a castle turret. I think I called it the clutch as we were taking it apart, but of course this watch doesn't have a clutch because you can't wind it manually, so there's no need for one. All the power to the spring comes through the automatic works. He said getting his finger in the way there. So just moving on, there we have got the top plate, and you can see the recess there for the ratchet wheel. Moving down, we've got the automatic works plate with its 3 retention screws, and then we've got the magic lever cover with its 2 screws, and the main driving wheel in the center of the frame now, that winds the spring. To the right of that, you can see that we've got the balance on the balance cock with its retention screw. Then we've got the hands, minute, second, and hour, going from left to right. Then you can see the dial retention screws and the dial washer, and then we have got that intermediate bridge. It's actually the train bridge, I guess. And then we have got the pallet cock and the pallets, and finally here we have got the barrel with the mainspring inside it. I am actually going to take that apart in a minute. And then below that we have got the cover for the motion works on the dial side of the movement. So there we are. That is the full movement disassembled. We're going to put the parts now through the ultrasonic cleaner, and then I'll pick up this video as we put the watch back together for part 2. There we are. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I hope it's been informative if you're taking this watch apart. I hope this has been useful. Then and please take a moment to subscribe to my videos. I'm doing a lot of videos at the moment, and they tend to fall into this reasonably technical style video, and then some more less technical, where we're looking at watches as fashion items and the worldwide watch market and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope it's been useful, and part 2 coming up soon. Thanks. Bye now.